Sir, there is nothing moves my charity like gratitude, and when a beggar is thankful for a small relief, I always repent it was not more. But seriously, this place will not afford much towards the enlarging of a letter, and I am grown so dull with living in it, for I am not willing to confess yet I was always so, as to need all helps. Yet you shall see I will endeavour to satisfy you, upon condition you will tell me why you quarrelled so at your last letter. I cannot guess at it, unless it were that you repented you told me so much of your story, which I am not apt to believe neither, because it would not become our friendship, a great part of it consisting, as I have been taught, in a mutual confidence. And to let you see that I believe it so, I will give you an account of myself, and begin my story, as you did yours, from our parting at Goring House. I came down hither not half so well pleased as I went up, with an engagement upon me that I had little hope of shaking off. For I had made use of all the liberty my friends would allow me to preserve my own, and 'twould not do. He was so weary of his, that he would part with it upon any terms. As my last refuge I got my brother to go down with him to see his house, who, when he came back, made the relation I wished. He said the seat was as ill as so good a country would permit, and the house so ruined for want of living in it, as it would take a good proportion of time and money to make it fit for a woman to confine herself to. This, though it were not much, I was willing to take hold of, and made it considerable enough to break the engagement. I had no quarrel to his person or his fortune, but was in love with neither, and much out of love with a thing called marriage, and have since thanked God I was so, for 'tis not long since one of my brothers writ me word of him that he was killed in a duel, though since I have heard that 'twas the other that was killed, and he is fled upon it, which does not mend the matter much. Both made me glad I had escaped him, and sorry for his misfortune, which in earnest was the least return his many civilities to me could deserve. Presently, after this was at an end, my mother died, and I was left at liberty to mourn her loss a while. At length my aunt, with whom I was when you last saw me, commanded me to wait on her at London, and when I came, she told me how much I was in her care, how well she loved me for my mother's sake, and something for my own, and drew out a long set speech which ended in a good motion, as she called it. And I truly saw no harm in it, for by what I had heard of the gentleman, I guess he expected a better fortune than mine, and it proved so. Yet he protested he liked me so well that he was very angry my father would not be persuaded to give £1,000 more with me, and I him so ill that I vowed if I had £1,000 less, I should have thought it too much for him, and so we parted. Since he has made a story with a new mistress that is worth your knowing, but too long for a letter. I'll keep it for you. After this, some friends that had observed a gravity in my face which might become an elderly man's wife, as they termed it, and a mother-in-law proposed a widower to me, that had 4 daughters, all old enough to be my sisters. But he had a great estate, was as fine a gentleman as ever England bred, and the very pattern of wisdom. I that knew how much I wanted it, thought this was the safest place for me to engage in, and was mightily pleased to think I had met with one at last that had wit enough for himself and me too. But I shall tell you what I thought when I knew him. You will say nothing on it. 'Twas the vainest, impertinent, self-conceited, learned coxcomb that I ever yet saw. To say more would spoil his marriage, which I hear is towards with a daughter of my Lord Colerane's. But for his sake I shall take care of a fine gentleman as long as I live. Before I have quite ended with him, coming to town about that and some other occasions of my own, I fell in Sir Thomas's way, and what humour took I cannot imagine, but he made very formal addresses to me, and engaged his mother and my brother to appear in it. This bred a story pleasanter than any I have told you yet, but so long a one that I must reserve it till we meet, or make it a letter of itself. The next thing I designed to be rid on was a scurvy spleen that I had been subject to, and to that purpose was advised to drink the waters. There I spent the latter end of the summer, and at my coming home found that a gentleman, who had some estate in this country, had been treating with my brother, and it yet goes on fair and softly. I do not know him so much as to give you much of his character. 'Tis a modest, melancholy, reserved man, whose head is so taken up with little philosophic studies, that I admire how I found a room there. 'Twas sure by chance, and unless he is pleased with that part of my humour which other people think the worst, 'tis very possible the next new experiment may crowd me out again. Thus you have all my late adventures, and almost as much as this paper will hold. The rest shall be employed in telling you how sorry I am that you have got such a cold. I am the more sensible of your trouble by my own, for I have newly got one myself. But I will send you that which was to cure me. 'Tis like the rest of my medicines. If it do no good, 'twill be sure to do no harm, and 'twill be no great trouble to take a little on it now and then, for the taste on it, as it is not excellent, so 'tis not very ill. One thing more I must tell you, which is that you are not to take it ill that I mistook your age by my computation of your journey through this country, for I was persuaded the other day that I could not be less than 30 years old by one that believed it himself, because he was sure it was a great while since he had heard of such a one as your humble servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 2, December 24th, 1652. Sir, you may please to let my old servant, as you call him, know that I confess I owe much to his merits and the many obligations his kindness and civilities has laid upon me. But for the £10 he claims, it is not yet due, and I think you may do well to persuade him, as a friend, to put it in the number of his desperate debts, for 'tis a very uncertain one. In all things else, pray say I am his servant. And now, sir, let me tell you that I am extremely glad, whosoever gave you the occasion, to hear from you, since, without compliment, there are very few persons in the world I am more concerned in. To find that you have overcome your long journey, and that you are well and in a place where 'tis possible for me to see you, is such a satisfaction as I, who have not been used to many, may be allowed to doubt of. Yet I will hope my eyes do not deceive me, and that I have not forgot to read, but if you please to confirm it to me by another, you know how to direct it, for I am where I was, still the same, and always, your humble servant, D. Osborne. For Mrs. Painter, in Covent Garden. Keep this letter till it be called for. Letter 3, January 2nd, 1653. Sir, if there were anything in my letter that pleased you, I am extremely glad on it. 'Twas all due to you, and made it but an equal return for the satisfaction yours gave me. And whatsoever you may believe, I shall never repent the good opinion I have with so much reason taken up. But I forget myself. I meant to chide, and I think this is nothing towards it. Is it possible you came so near me as Bedford, and would not see me? Seriously, I should not have believed it from another. Would your horse had lost all his legs instead of a hoof, that he might not have been able to carry you further, and you, something that you valued extremely, and could not hope to find anywhere but at Chicksands. I could wish you 1,000 little mischances, I am so angry with you. For my life I could not imagine how I had lost you, or why you should call that a silence of 6 or 8 weeks which you intended so much longer. And when I had wearied myself with thinking of all the unpleasing accidents that might cause it,